Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. So, as I do typically whenever I review a Marvel movie, I will be splitting up the episode into part one, part two. Not in the old way we used to do it, where it's pre-movie thoughts, post-movie thoughts. It was going to be without spoilers and with spoilers. I tend to see these movies on opening night, well, tonight preview night. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to review it, if someone wants to get a spoiler-free review, the option is there, and then I'm going to spoil the fuck out of it after that. Of course, new Marvel movie. Today is March 7th. It is Captain Marvel. Is it March 7th? Yeah, it's March 7th. Okay, I'm not fucking up too badly. I think that this movie was... I'm going to be honest, the plot points in this movie, not at all what I expected, and the reason why I'm going to go more into that in the spoiler section, because as a part of the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, this does create a few problematic things going forward. Going into the movie, I already had an innate problem, because, not innate problem, that's the wrong way to put it, but I had a little bit of there was going to be an adjustment period going into the movie. But fortunately, they kind of correct that. Where, it's not too long before you realize what's actually going on, and it's, they don't go out of their way to, to keep you in the dark and try to confuse you too long, because as we know from the trailers and everything, she's working with the Kree. The Kree were the bad guys in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and, I feel like the Kree are referenced in other things besides Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and in Guardians of the Galaxy, because the Kree are the bad guys there, too. And now, in this movie, she's working with the Kree, so there's a little bit of an adjustment to get used to her working with the Kree. Although I think when people saw that they had Ronan the Accuser and the other guy from Guardians of the Galaxy were going to be working with her, people were like, she's not going to be working with them for long. Because it's too odd, considering the only capacity we've seen these people in is as villains, and if you're going to try to make them more sympathetic, that would just be weird, especially considering where they are. They don't really try to expand on Ronan any, which I guess doesn't hurt or help, because he was always a one-dimensional bad guy, and this doesn't really make him any less of a one-dimensional bad guy. It doesn't make him any more of a one-dimensional bad guy. He's just the same one-dimensional bad guy he was, blindly following Kree orders. I'm actually surprised they did a good job with the typical "we're not going to tell you who this person is" trick, because it's like they pulled that with Wrath of Khan, with Star Trek Into Darkness, where it's like, oh, who's Benedict Cumberbatch playing? It's not Khan, oh, it's Khan. And then with Arkham Knight, it was, who's the Arkham Knight? Oh, it's not Jason Todd, Surprise, it's Jason Todd, you never guessed it. Why? Because we told you it wasn't. They didn't do that here, and this is kind of a minor spoiler, but Jude Law is not playing Mar-Vell. I don't know if that was known for a while, or if I was just slow on the uptake of not knowing that going into the movie, and if other people did, but he's not playing... He's not playing Mar-Vell. There is Mar-Vell in this movie, but it's a different character. Let's see, what else? I have one minor complaint about the movie, and I think that I don't know if this is so much the movie, or if I see it in a different theater, or if I see it when it comes out on DVD, if it's going to be corrected, but a lot of the sequences of the movie are really dark, and it's hard to see. So, there's a sequence toward the end of the movie, right toward the beginning of the third act, when she's modifying her costume's colors with the help of Monica Rambeau, and she's modifying the colors of the costume, and we see her settle on the comics costume for Captain Marvel, and we see her do that, and then it's in the dark, so there's this moment where they're playing a triumphant upswell on the music to try and show her in the full costume for the first time, accepting her responsibility there. And it's kind of it kind of falls a little bit flat, because you can't really see it, because the movie is so dark in the scene, you can't really tell that her costume changed colors at all. So yeah, I think that I think if obviously you probably haven't seen this movie, considering this episode is going up the night it came out. I saw literally the first showing on the East Coast time, which would have been 7:30. I saw it in 3D. But I think that if this is definitely a movie worth seeing. If comparing it to Wonder Woman, I would say this is a slightly better movie than Wonder Woman, because it does nail its third act, where Wonder Woman kind of stumbles to the finish. It does kind of nail the third act a little bit better. And it has a whole bunch of cute little nods to the future that we know of throughout the movie. And we'll go into that more in the spoiler section. But absolutely worth your time seeing this movie. Now, if you're continuing on past this point, I'm going to spoil the movie with some of the larger plot points going on that I enjoyed, didn't enjoy, that kind of stuff. So from here on out, spoilers, as the title would suggest. Number one, we do have Mar-Vell in the movie, as I said before, and the reason why it's important that Mar-Vell is kind of instrumental to Carol's intro as a character in Marvel, because her origin story is very similar to the origin story of Green Lantern, and they do an interesting thing in this movie where we kind of start in media res, where she's working for the Kree, so we don't have her origin from the beginning, and then she becomes a hero, and then she goes off, and then she, that kind of thing. She's already got powers, and she's already fighting as a soldier, and she already is in space, and all this stuff already happened. And then as she's going along, it slowly pieces together her origin. It's like she sees flashbacks, and then the Skrulls are tinkering with her mind, and she gets more flashbacks, and then she goes to Earth, she finds a file, and she sees herself on Earth with all these other people. And it's an interesting way, I think, of doing the origin in that way, to the point where you don't really think of it as a very similar story to origin to Green Lantern, where it's the previous Lantern dies, he passes on his power. This is Mar-Vell is there, she's building this Lightspeed engine. She tries to leave with it to help. As it turns out, Mar-Vell, the good guy, is trying to help the Skrulls, who are also the good guy in this movie, which is surprising to me. It blows up, but the energy from the Lightspeed engine goes into Captain Marvel. I guess I had a realization about them. I'm gonna get to that in a minute, because there's another pretty big plot point from here and from previous movies that's kind of just touched on, but not really fully addressed. As to its significance, it's kind of just because they don't know, because it takes place in the future and in the past, and it's okay. We'll get to that in a minute. But so she gets the powers that way. Then they put a dampener on her, so that way she's not the full strength of her power. So if you've ever seen any of the iterations of Dark Phoenix, you're familiar with this kind of stupidity where they're like, we're gonna keep a dampener on her, and then when they figure it out that they've been dampening the powers, they're afraid of you. Nothing bad could possibly go wrong. So the thing I was saying before about that is the power source from the Lightspeed engine is something we have already. It's something we've already had in the Marvel Universe since it was first shown in a sketchbook in Iron Man 2, and then in Captain America, the first Captain America movie, it makes its first appearance as the MacGuffin that they're chasing through the movie. The Tesseract comes back, because we can't get enough of the fucking Infinity Stones, can we? So we have the Tesseract is on the lab that Mar-Vell had, and she's using it to power the lab and power the Lightspeed engine and all that. So I guess we can say why she's going to have a special connection to defeating Thanos. It's because her powers are derived from an Infinity Stone in a way that no one else is. Because, no other character has their power set based on it coming from an Infinity Stone. So it just kind of, that could be the big connection, is that she probably has, because of her powers being derived from energy that came from the Tesseract, she may have some connection to the Space Stone, but it's nebulous. That's all unknown going into Endgame. Which brings me to my next point. I wanted to address this as a general movie-going experience pet peeve I have. I've mentioned in the past I don't like clapping. And I don't like when people clap at a movie. You can laugh, you can react, that's fine. But don't fucking applaud things. Please don't applaud things. And I had a feeling that this was going to happen when for the Marvel Studios logo in the beginning, where they usually show clips from the previous movies. They show, Iron Man 1, they show Captain America running through the forests of Europe, they show Hulkbuster suit up, they show things like that. They showed all of Stan Lee's cameos, through the entire thing, and the script pages were all Stan Lee's cameos. It was a cute thing, and I should have known people going, oh, like that, and I was like, it's gonna be one of those movies. And thankfully they were quiet through the entire rest of the fucking thing. Then there was a standing ovation at the end of the movie, because, not just a standing ovation, a standing, hooting, hollering, shut the fuck up and sit down, it's a fucking movie, not a stage performance, standing ovation. And then there was the mid-credit scene. There are two post-credit scenes on this movie. The last one is just, at one point, to get the Tesseract off of the spaceship, they feed the Tesseract to the cat Goose, who's not really a cat. And then he spits out like a hairball on Fury's desk. And the other post-credit scene, the more important post-credit scene, because like we don't need to know what happened to the Tesseract between there and the Avengers. We kind of can figure out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has the Tesseract, then S.H.I.E.L.D.'s working on the Tesseract 20 years later. It kind of just fits together. You don't need to really do too much thinking about it. 15 years later, not 20. So the other one that's more important, it takes place immediately after Infinity War, and it shows like Captain America and Black Widow and all of them are standing around, and it's you see the beeper, Fury's pager that he had. You see that hooked up to a giant battery of some kind, and Black Widow's like, "Oh, we're looking. Fury was obviously trying to get to someone. We got to figure out who's on the other side of that pager, and we got to get through to them." And then she turns around, and Captain Marvel's standing there, and she's just like, "Where's Fury?" At that point, the entire row ahead of me, I can only describe their reaction to the scene as a similar reaction to someone having a full body orgasm. They were screaming, they were rocking back and forth in their chairs, similar to the famed person at Force Awakens when Han Solo died, but in a good way, not in a bad way, stomping their feet, screaming their heads off. It was either a homicide or they just came. I don't know which it was. I wish they had died because that would have been more enjoyable for me, because then they wouldn't have been screaming anymore. But please don't scream in a movie theater, because it's designed to keep sound in, and when you scream, it just gets louder and louder, and it's annoying. Like, we get it, you're excited, and everyone else in the theater, if they're going to see this movie on opening night, is also excited about that, because it's like it's the next thing. It's like when you saw Ant-Man and the Wasp and you saw Pym and Janet and Hope all get dusted, you're like, oh shit's going down, and it's going back to the next Avengers movie. It's the same thing. It's just you don't have to fucking scream and stamp your feet and make so much noise that it becomes a nuisance to everyone around you. And also, one other minor complaint: if someone is using their phone in the theater, that person's a douche. Everyone around that person knows they're a douche. What's more annoying than the person using their phone in the theater is the person who's like 5 rows back screaming, "Excuse me, turn your phone off. Excuse me, turn your phone off." Like, holy fuck. Because the thing is, the person using their phone, everyone else in the theater is ignoring that. Because usually the screen's down dim enough where it's like it's not a huge deal, but they're off to the side or they're in front of you, but it's rows down and it's all that. You yelling over the movie to turn off your phone is infinitely more annoying, and you're ruining it for everyone around you. Because a phone can be ignored, someone screaming over the dialogue cannot. So that's the end of my theater gripes section of this. But yes, and then another cute thing I did that nodded to the future was when he's coming up with the at the end of the movie, he realizes, Fury, that like they can't defend, like Earth can't defend itself from aliens because what's it called? They made it seem like they know there are aliens out there, and the only person who could defend them at that point was Captain Marvel, and she's on the other side of the universe, and she can't help. So they start coming up with what he starts calling the Protector Initiative, and then he sees her picture and her call sign, or her call sign when she was in the military, when she was in the Air Force, was Avenger. So he renamed it to the Avengers Initiative. And they play the Avengers theme, and it's the same thing as at the end of Doctor Strange when they slowly mesh his theme into Silvestri's Avengers theme. It's kind of the same thing where they do that there too. And I think that it honestly is a very good movie. There's a lot of great moments of her where it's not normal in any superhero movie for the hero to show any sort of vulnerability and it be okay, where it's like you don't really see that unless it's played off for laughs. Like, Captain America never really has a moment of vulnerability in any of his movies. Wonder Woman doesn't have a moment of vulnerability. She just has a moment where she feels like betrayed. Just betrayal is the only emotion she really feels in the movie besides a drive to complete her mission in Wonder Woman, and that's the only time you get any sort of change to her behavior is when she feels that Steve Trevor and the other not Howling Commandos have been influenced by Ares as well. It's this movie allows Carol to show emotion and show conflict and show that she's coming to terms with the fact that a giant portion of her life was just erased from her memory. And the movie actually gives her time and space to explore that and to visibly go through that and still show it's okay, you can still be powerful after that. And it doesn't, and a hero isn't afraid to show the vulnerability. Because Iron Man, the only time Iron Man really shows vulnerabilities in Iron Man 3, and a lot of times it's played off for laughs, and in Iron Man 2 as well, when he's going through the stages of, not grief, when he's going through all the signs of being suicidal, right before, as he's dying from the thing in his chest, it's mostly played off for laughs. When you go to, what was the other one, Thor is just kind of powering through everything, just kind of hoping for the best. But the only person who really shows and expresses vulnerability in a normal human adult way is Captain Marvel. And she's showing the grief of the lost life she had and all of that stuff. And that's why I think Brie Larson was such a good choice to play her, because she actually was able, she's a very expressive actress. She's an Academy Award winning actress. She knows how to work the scene like that, especially coming from a role like Room. So I think this is an excellent movie all around. It's just my only complaint with the color grading, and that could have just been my theater had an issue with the brightness on the screen. I don't know how accurate that is, but I'll look into it at some point. I did there's one action sequence toward the end that I really liked, and I'm starting to think that we can make the case that Gunn wasn't quite as instrumental in what we see in Guardians of the Galaxy as we may have originally thought, because I was watching the credits for this movie, and there's a familiar name in the screenwriting credits, Nicole Perlman. She co-wrote the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and this movie does a great job with soundtrack choices for the period in the same way Guardians of the Galaxy does. Now, it's not as overt. It's not her walking around with a Walkman and having it be part of her identity. It's just the soundtrack interacts with the movie. What's it called? When she's meeting with the Supreme Intelligence, who's played by Annette Bening, who also plays who also plays Mar-Vell. They're playing "Come As You Are" from Nirvana, and it's the same kind of thing they have in Guardians. It's just not it's not quite where Guardians, I've said in the past, you could probably make the case as a musical because the cast is interacting with the music. The music isn't quite so much being interacted with as much as it is just there. It's like when they're playing No Doubt during one of the fights she has after she gets awakened into her full power in the third act of the movie when she's fighting all the Kree soldiers. They're playing No Doubt. It's not playing in the movie itself. It's just playing in general over the soundtrack, but it interacts and the action's kind of in sync with it in not quite to the same degree the music is synchronized as Baby Driver, but it's kind of on its way there. And I think that if she can, work her magic on Guardians 3, maybe she can be the director of Guardians 3. It depends on if Simon Kinberg can, make the case for screenwriters becoming directors with Dark Phoenix. But we'll see. And that would be an easy way to solve that problem. There was one other thing that I really wanted to address, and it really came to mind just now when I was talking about the, the sequence when they were fighting on the ship. This advertisement played before the movie. I'm surprised that they didn't run an Endgame trailer before the movie. I mean, granted, the entire post-credit scene is a Endgame trailer, but not to the same degree that the end credit scene for the first Avenger was a trailer for the first Avengers. They didn't run a trailer for it beforehand. The two trailers that immediately preceded the movie were Frozen 2 and The Lion King. Which is surprising because Dumbo didn't get a trailer, which is another Disney property. This was Disney's first movie of the year, and it's this is the first major blockbuster of 2018. There was none prior to this. That was a domestic major blockbuster because Wandering Earth came out already, and that movie was giant, and what's it called? It's not a domestic one, but this is the first one that the average movie-going audience is going to see in droves. I mean, you could probably make the case for like Glass, but Glass didn't quite pan out as expected. But this is really the first major one from a major studio, Disney's first major outing of the year. So they used it as an opportunity to pimp their goods a little bit, and they did it with The Lion King and with Frozen, but there was no Aladdin trailer before it, no Endgame. I'm surprised they didn't drop a Star Wars teaser, so that way they could put that before this. I feel like that should have definitely happened before Endgame. I'm actually really surprised that they didn't have a Dumbo one, because it's the last major movie you can really put Dumbo in front of, because it's, another Disney movie. So yeah, I really can't remember what the other thing was that I wanted to address about this movie. It's like with the soundtrack and all of that. If I remember it, I'll include it in an episode of 30-minute reviews when I do. I'm not going to do Pirates of the Caribbean this week. I'm going to actually in my mind I'm going to do Creed 2. But yeah, if I remember it, I'll bring it up there. I really don't remember what the fuck it was. Probably because it's 10:30 at night and I'm exhausted, and I literally left the theater, got in my car, and I'm now recording this. So I really don't fucking remember what it was I wanted to say. But oh well. We'll remember it when we remember it, and if we don't, we don't. Oh, that was it. The Skrulls' role in this movie. That's a pretty major thing. The trailers and everything make it look like the Skrulls are the bad guys, because most of the footage from the movie is from the first, half the movie. With some snippets from the very end. And the fact that everything teased it as the bad guy is Ben Mendelsohn's Talos, and all of that. Now, here's the thing, the Skrulls aren't actually the bad guys. The Skrulls are refugees trying to escape the Kree, because, as we should have expected from the beginning, the Krees are the bad guys. And I think the biggest problem with this whole thing with that is that after this movie was announced that the Skrulls were, going to be the bad guys, there's a lot of speculation that where do you go with the Avengers after that you do Infinity War and you do that whole thing. Where do you go next? A lot of people assumed you do Secret Invasion, considering the Skrulls are now set up, they're shapeshifters and they're doing that. And now the Skrulls have been made very sympathetic. And she's helping the Skrulls. And I don't think doing Secret Invasion is that great of an idea. I could see them still doing it, but it'd just be a weird, complete tonal shift from the previous movie that the Skrulls were featured in. That's not to say there aren't extremist sects of the Skrulls somewhere, but I think it would still be an odd decision. So really, the movie did a great job of making it so we have no idea what the fuck is going on after Endgame. Because it can be literally anything at this point, except for Secret Invasion, which is the big thought. Probably not gonna do Secret Wars that quick, but oh well. We'll see where they leave us after Endgame, emotionally and story-wise. So we'll wrap it up there with Captain Marvel. 100% go see this movie. It is entirely worth your time. And the ticket sales. Don't listen to the IMDb rating or the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Those are both being heavily skewed by people who are pissed off with a woman leading a movie. And I read a New York Post review of it as well, which should have been your clue right there that the New York Post is kind of fucked up to begin with. Or it was either the Post or the Daily News, one of those two tabloids they run, and they pretend they're real news in New York City. And it gave it a 1-star review and was like, oh, typical man telling her not to use her powers, and it's like, okay, we get it. We get it. You're upset that a woman won't fuck you. Okay, calm down. Just take your personal feelings out of it. They're not trying to erase you from existence. No one's coming to get you. This is just a good movie. Shut the fuck up. Because that's the thing that I think happened with someone like that, is they went into it being mad, and then they were like, oh, see, the movie wasn't They went into it expecting to be bad, and then confirmation bias set in. We're going to try and find evidence to prove that I don't like this movie. But the movie is fantastic. 100% go see this movie. And we'll wrap it up there for today. I don't know what the next movie I'm going to do is. I might do another one later this weekend. I don't know. We will find out, though, and I will tweet it out if we do. The show's Twitter is currently shared with 30-minute reviews, but I'm probably going to split them up in the near future at 30min review on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at AdamTaylor792. And we will be back later in next week with another episode. Definitely going to have another episode of 30-minute reviews this week, covering the big news that Arrow will not be coming back after their truncated season 8 of 10 episodes, and what that possibly means going forward for the other shows on the CW coming out of DC and Berlanti. And we'll be back with that probably tomorrow. And with that, have a great rest of your week.